Welcome to Edge Concepts. In this tutorial, I'll be creating a shopping cart in a React.js application using the context API. So this is the complete application. This is what I'll be creating. So if I add these three products to the shopping cart for now, and I navigate to that page, you can see they are being displayed here. The quantity is 1 and the respective price or a total amount you're going to spend on each item. Then this is the total expenditure. This will be the total expenditure for those three items. So if I increase the quantity, you can see it's reflected in the price and in the total price. Reduction does the same. You can as well remove the products by clicking this, or by reducing the number below 1. It will completely be removed. I had done another video on creation of the shopping cart in a React.js application using the Redux library. I'll leave the link to that video in the description of this video. So without wasting so much time on introduction, let's move to coding. Welcome back. So this is the application before the implementation of the shopping cart functionality. I have two pages right now. If I try to add anything to the shopping cart, it will not be responsive. So as you can see, there's nothing in my shopping cart. So we shall proceed and do the coding part of the shopping cart. I expect that before you start thinking of building a shopping cart in your React.js application, you should be able to create this simple product display page. I have used React Router to achieve the pages. Then I've also used Axios library to fetch this data from a fake API. I will leave a link to this API in the description of this video. So let me proceed to the coding area. I'm using Visual Studio Code Editor. Maybe I take you through the file structure and the folder structure very fast. I have created two folders inside my SRC folder. I have the components and the pages folder. So the components right now has a subfolder. I named it navbar, which contains two files that is responsible for the display of this fixed top navigation bar, which contains the links to my pages. Then I have a pages subfolder, which contains the cart subfolder and the homepage subfolders. So the homepage is responsible, contains the files that are responsible for displaying this homepage. Then the cart subfolder contains the files responsible for displaying that. Then in my homepage, I have fetched data from the fake API using Axios. Then I have the data here as an empty array initially. Then after fetching, I update the data using the useStateHook, as you've seen. Then later I have iterated over the data using the map method. Remember, data is an array, and I'm able to display the information of every object within the array down here, just like that. And here I have my button, which calls to action, that is to add the product to the shopping cart. As simple as that. For the cart page, right now I have this simple code that just displays this text cart, and its CSS is also very simple. I had coded this during my pre-testing. Let me just clear it out so that we start from scratch, like that. The next thing that I'm going to do is now start creating the context API, so that I'll be able to create a global state that will be available in every part of my application. So I'll come back to my SRC folder and create a subfolder here. I'm going to name it context. Then inside this context, I'm going to create one file, which I'm going to name context.js. Then I'll proceed and create a context. Of course, I need to export it because I'll be using it in different parts of the application. I'll name it cat context. This is the same as a create context. Make sure you import a create context at the top from React the way I've done. Then I'll also export a function that is going to supply this context to my application. I'll name that function context. Then I'll pass the props here. This is an arrow function. Then this is going to return my context as a component. .provider. Then it will have a prop value. Then inside here I'll be supplying the information that is going to be the state and all the methods that are going to manipulate the state. Maybe just to test if this one is working out, I'll create a constant here. I'll just name it state, which is the same as I'll give it a number. Let me give it number 8. Then pass it here as a state like that. And then within this context component inside it, I'm going to pass the props.children. Like that. Then I'll proceed to the uppermost entry point of my application, which is index.js, and import that function here. Then I'll enclose my application within that context. So let me save that. Then I'll proceed to my home page and try to access this context, which is now the global state here. Let's see if we are able to access this number 8. So to be able to access the context, we shall make use of the use state, not use state, but use context hook from React. So I'll create a variable here, a constant. I'll name it global state. It's going to be use context hook. I'll call it here. Make sure you import it at the top. I have done that. Then I'll pass the cat context that we created. Make sure you also import it at the top, like that. Then save it. Then I'll console log this and see the values that we are going to get from the console. So let me save that and head to the application. I'll get back to the home page, then inspect. You can see I'm able to access this number 8 at my homepage.js, which means everything is working fine. So the next thing that I want to do is to now utilize the use reducer hook, which is going to listen to the actions that we're going to dispatch, so that either to add the products to the cart, reduce the quantity of a given product, or remove the quantity, remove a given product from the shopping cart, or reduce its quantity. So let me clear this. I'm going to create a constant and name it info. That is going to have all the information about the state. It's going to be an object. Then I'll pass that info here. Then I will introduce the use reducer hook. Make sure you import the use reducer hook the way I've done here. So the use reducer hook has the state at this section as a variable. Then it has a method here known as dispatch that is going to push the actions. Then it takes two parameters of arguments. The first one is going to be the reducer function. Let me just name it reducer like that. And the second one is going to be the initial value of the state. I'll keep it as an empty array, or set it to an empty array. Then I have to create this constant, which is a function, a reducer function. The reducer function is going to take two parameters. The first one is going to be the state, and the other one is going to be the action. Then it's going to listen to the action types that will be dispatched. So I'm going to use conditional rendering, and I'll make use of a switch statement. The switch statement is going to depend on the action type, so I'll pass action type here as the condition. So action.type, the action is going to be an object. Then if no action will be passed, that is going to be default. I'll want to return the state. Like that. Then we shall create our first action, which is going to add products to the cart. So I'll have my first case here. The case is going to be the action known as add. Then if that action is passed, I want my reducer to check if there is any information that has been sent. But before maybe we proceed doing that, I want to go back to the home page where I have my call to action button, which is this one here. When I click this button, I want to send the information, dispatch the information to the global state, which is going to have the information of the shopping cart. So I'm going to create a click event here, and I'll have an anonymous function, sorry about that, and this function is going to call the dispatch method, which I'm yet to supply to my homepage.js. So I have the global state here, which is accessing, this one is accessing the global state from the context API, which is this state here. So I have to pass them state as one property of the object, and the other one is going to be the dispatch, which is this method here. Save that. And then let me just return that and save. If I go to the browser, dispatch is not defined. So let's define that. So const dispatch is going to be our global state. Remember, our global state is an object. which is represented by this info in the context API. So it is an object with two properties, the state and the dispatch. So to be able to access the dispatch, we shall use the dot notation. So dot dispatch. But then we have to dispatch an object which is going to contain our action type and also the action payload. So we shall have the type of the action as add, then we shall have the payload. The payload is going to be the information that we are sending, the object that we are sending to the array now. Remember, my total data or the data containing the objects has been iterated using the map method, and this item is representing every object within this array or a single object within the array, and therefore the object payload will be item, like that. So let me save that. Then I'll head back to the context API and work on the use-reducer hook. So if I receive, as the reducer receives this action of add, I want to add the information to the state, which is an empty array for now. You've seen that. So I will return. The thing that we want to do is to make sure we don't override the array, but we add the information on top of what we already have in the array. So far the array is empty, so we just copy the state, then we add the object that we are bringing in. So the object is going to be action.payload. Remember, the action that we are sending is an object. That. So save it. Then we shall head back to our application. It's reloading. There we have it. Then I'm going to inspect this. So far we have an array which is empty. We have the method and we have the state which is empty. So if I click this, you can see that my array has the length of 1 now, which means something has been added into it. So my state is having an object. You can see the title is the same as what I have here. If I add another one, you can see the array changes to 2, which means 2 objects have been added into the array. So let's go back and continue working on it. One thing you notice is here, if I click the same object, it will still be added into the array so many times, and I do not want that to happen. I only want the object to be added into the array once, and the only thing we can do to increase the quantity is to press the increase and the decrease buttons on the properties that are displayed in the shopping cart. We are yet to fetch the data and display it there, but before we do that, I would like to avoid re-adding the object into the array. So what I'm going to do is to first create a temporary cart here, or a temporary state. I'll call it temp state, like that. I'm going to filter the state that is there to check if that object is available before we push it in. So each object will be represented by item. You can give it any name that you want. And what I want to check is if the action dot payload, which represents the item that I'm sending, I want to check its ID if it's the same as the ID of the item that we are filtering within the object. So item.id, that should be equal, like that. So if it's available, it means that we are going to have a length which is greater than 0. Remember, the ID is unique and therefore we are only going to get 1. So how do I check? I'll use the if statement here. So if the temporary state dot length is greater than 0, it means that this item is already in the array, and therefore I'll just return the state. I'll not do anything to it. But if it's not available, then I'll manipulate the state. Let me cut this and use the else statement here. That, then save it. Then let's go back to the application. If I add the item, the array changes to 1. If I try adding it again, it will not be added. But if I add a different one, you can see it is being added. If I re-add, nothing happens. That's good. So I'll now like to proceed to the shopping cart section and display this information in our shopping cart. I think we are done with the homepage section. Let me just close this. Close that also. Then I'll open the shopping cart. Let me minimize this. The first thing that I'd like to do is to access the global state. So make use of the use context hook. Make sure you import it at the top, like that. And then create a constant. Call it a global state. You can name it anything. Which is the same as use context hook. Then I pass the name of my context, which is a cart context. Make sure you import it at the top, like that. Then this is going to have several properties of an object. They are just 2. That is what I passed, which is the state and the method that is going to manipulate the state. So I will have my state here. As a global state.state. Then I'll also have the dispatch. I'll have dispatch as a global state dot dispatch. This is supposed to be a constant. So I have all the values from the global state. Then I'm going to iterate over the array, which is my state, so that I'll be able to display the information of the objects that I have. So I'll use the map method, which is going to have each item, then the index of each item. Remember, the index is unique. Then I'll return a card. Then inside this card, I want to display the image of the product. So the image is going to be item, which is an object, dot the image property, which is image according to the information that we have here. If I expand this, and just expand it, when I expand one object, you can see there is that property there that represents the image, like that. So if I save this and head to the cart section, we shall be able to see the images being displayed because we have several objects so far. I have this error because I haven't passed a unique key in my card. So key is going to be the index. that is going to disappear. Then the other thing that I would like to have is the title, which is going to be item dot title of the product. Then I'll also have quantity. That quantity property is not available, so we shall create that. How do we create the quantity property? Let's go back to the home page, so that when we are adding our item, it's added together with the quantity property. That property is introduced, so we just introduce it here. We say that item dot quantity is going to be 1 by default. Then save that. So we shall have another paragraph to represent the item dot quantity. That. Then we shall also have the total price, or total expenditure on a given item. So to achieve that, we shall do some multiplication. We are going to take the quantity of the item, so item dot quantity multiplied by the price, which is going to be item dot price, like that. Then we are going to have a section where we are increasing and reducing the quantity. That is going to, let me just copy this. It's going to enclose that with buttons. So I'll have a div here with a class name of quantity. Then inside here I'm going to have a buttons. One is going to add. Then in between the buttons we shall have our quantity, and the other one is going to reduce the quantity. So let me create another button. That. Then it's going to be subtraction, and save the changes. Then we shall also have a button or a section that is going to remove the item completely from the array or from the shopping cart. I like to make things simple. I'll just pass an h2 tag here with an x to show that we are clearing that. Now let me head to the cart.css and start doing the styling, simple styling. So we'll start with the class of cart, then .card. But maybe before I introduce the cards, I like to have my display as a flex, then flex direction as column. Then I'll also like to introduce the gap in between my cards as 32 pixel. That. Then I'll proceed to the card section. I'll have a display of flex also. Then I'll justify content so that I have space in between the items. So space between. Then I'll proceed to the image. So let me copy this. That. And give it a width of 40 pixel and a height of 40 pixel. Sorry about that. So let's see if this is taking shape. Yeah, that is what we have for now. Remember, this is a fixed display, so we are going to give this a padding of 128 pixel, like that. Then I also work on the paragraphs, so let me just copy this. I'll give the paragraphs a width of 200 pixel. Now I'll refresh the application because the quantity property was not added. And if we add our items, then proceed to the shopping cart, you can see it's now taking shape like that. That is what I wanted. Then for our cards, I like to align items at the center. Then for the quantity section, let me just copy this. Images post there, then dot quantity class. I'll also give it a display of flex. Then flex direction of column. Then align items at the center like that. Sorry about that. I will also justify content at the center. This is not taking shape for the quantity. I wanted this to be aligned at the center. So let me go back to the cart section. This is what I have for the quantity class, 2 buttons and the paragraph in between. So let me copy that, paste it there, save it. Display is going to be flex, align items at the center. Flex direction is column. I know the reason why this is appearing like that. It's because my paragraph is having a class of, a width of that. Let me make it max width instead of a width, max width like that. Yeah, max width of 200. Yeah, so this is taking shape. Maybe the other thing that I would like to do is to align this. Maybe I'll just go back and introduce let me just remove this, then copy all this, put it there, then have my paragraph, then with it to be 0. I want the width to be none. No, it cannot be none. Sorry about that. CSS styling is really posing a challenge, but let me just give it a width of 50 pixel. A width of 50 pixel for now. Then I'll also have the buttons having the same width. That, then text align center. Good. So this is what I wanted. So the other thing is now to implement the functionality of this button so that we are able to increase the quantity and reduce it. And we shall do that at the shopping cart section, which is this page here. So when we click on the addition section, let's create a click event here. I'll have my anonymous function. Sorry about that. This is going to call the dispatch method, and inside the dispatch I'll pass an object which is going to have my action type. Now it's type, and it's also going to have for this case I will have increase because I'm increasing the quantity of the item. I'll just name it increase. It's not a must to name it increase. Sorry about that. Then we'll have another property which is going to be the payload. This one is going to be the item that I'm sending in, this one here. So save that. Then we shall go to the reducer and check the action, or provide that case down here. And the case where we have increase as the action type. So if that is introduced, I'll first check the item. I'll iterate over the whole array so that I find that item that I'm sending in. Then I change the quantity of that item. So I'm going to create another temporary state here. Let's name it state 2 because it's going to be a constant. It's going to be state it's going to be state.filter. It's not filter. We shall use the map method to be able to access all the items in the array. Sorry about that. Then when I access these items, what I want to check if item item.id is the same as the ID of the item that I'm sending, which is the action.payload.id. It means that that item is available. So what do? If the item is available, I change the quantity of the item. First, I have to copy all the properties of the item and only change the quantity. So that is going to be a copy of the item. Then I'll only proceed to the quantity section and change it. So we shall take the quantity that was initially there, which is item.quantity. Then we add 1 to it, like that. We have to return this. Good. But if the item is not there, then we return this item the way it is. So else return the item. Make sure to also return the temporary cut here. Temporary state, I keep confusing that, like that. So let's check if this is working out. Proceed back to the home page. Then let me just add 3 products. Go to the cart section. Increase. You can see everything is working. The next thing is to work on the reduction which is just going to be the opposite of what we have. So I'm going to copy this functionality and change a few things like that. Change this to temporary cut 2 and change this action type to decrease. Then instead of adding, we subtract. Remember to also change this section here to temporary state 2 like that. Save the changes. Then we go to the cut section and create that click event. So let me just copy this. And paste it there. Then this is going to be decrease. So save it. Let's see the changes. So let me add this time another 3 products. Then go to the shopping cart. Increase is working. Decrease is also working. But we come across another problem here. We are decreasing the items past, below 0, and we do not want to do that. So what we want to implement is to make sure that if the quantity goes below 1, we do not want to decrease it, but to remove it completely from the shopping section or from the cart. So to do that, I'm going to pass that action in my reducer hook down here. So we are going to have another case, which is going to be remove like that. Then what we want to do is to iterate over the array that we have. So let me just copy everything and make a few changes. This and paste it there. This is going to be temporary cut 3. Then I'm going to adjust all this. Let's adjust this. So what I want to do is to check if the item is available. So I have to, iterate over all the items using the map method. Then I have to return this temporary cut 3 like that. So if the item is available, I want to remove it from the array. I think I'm approaching it in a wrong way. Sorry for the confusion. If you've gotten into a confusion, I'm sorry for that. Let's just make the adjustment. What we want to do is we filter the whole array, then we return the items that do not have the ID as same as the item that we are sending in. So to be able to do that, we use the filter method. So we shall say that our temporary state 3, let me just copy this, is the same as our state dot filter. We filter our items. Then what we want is to return an item. We filter the items that do not have the same ID as the actions.payload. So item dot id is not equal. So is not equal is going to be that exclamation. The one that we are sending is going to be the action.payload .id, like that. So save that. Then we shall go to our cart and pass that action to our console section. So we are going to create a click event here. Then I'll have that anonymous function. Then I'm going to dispatch that action type. So the type is going to be remove. Then the payload is going to be item. Just like that. So for now, if we make the changes and proceed to our application, add a few items to the cart, this button is going to work. Yeah, you can see the item is being removed. So let's now implement the same functionality on the reduction, so that if the number is 1, instead of reducing that to 0 and -0, we just remove it. I mean negative values, we just remove it from the cart completely. So to do that, we shall come to this section where we are decreasing. Instead of dispatching the decrease action first, we shall check if the quantity is greater than 1. So I will say that if item.quantity is less than 2, let's just say that if item.quantity is less than 2, which means it's 1, we shall do something else. Or if it's greater than 1, we shall reduce the quantity. So I shall say that if it's like that, we dispatch this action. But if it's something else, we dispatch a different action which is reducing this one here. So let me just copy this. So else paste that. So save the changes. Let's head to the application. See, it's removed. Maybe let's repeat that. We add items. If it's 1, if we reduce it, goes to 0, and therefore it will be removed like that. That is what I wanted. You can also remove it irrespective of the quantity using this button. Good. The other thing that I want to implement is to show the totals down here. The video is taking quite some time, but bear with me because we want to drive the point home. So I'll have a section down here that is going to depend on the length of the state. So if the state dot length, which is the array, is greater than 1, let me just have greater than 0, then I'll display this section, which is going to be the total section. Let me just use this conditional rendering. I'll have my div here with a class of total. Sorry. This is supposed to be a div. Signs of fatigue. The video is taking quite some time. So I'll just have a paragraph, and this paragraph is going to contain the total amount spent on all the items, or the amount of money that you are likely to spend on the items that you have in your cart. So to be able to achieve that, we have to make use of the reduce method, array reduce method, so that we get the total of the expenditure. So we shall introduce that. Let me just have a constant known as total here. This is going to be state dot reduce method, which takes two parameters. The first one is going to be the functionality, and the other one is going to be the initial value, which I'm going to set as 1. Then the function takes two parameters, the total, then the item that we are iterating. Then it will return the functionality. The functionality that I want to is take the total, previous total, and add it to the total on each expenditure, which is going to be item dot price, of course, multiplied by item dot quantity. So save that. Then we shall pass our total here. I'm going to make it H2 so that it's bold. So let's set to the application saying that P is not defined. Let me just refresh this. Then add a few items. There we have the total. Maybe I'll do some styling very fast. Just going to be cut dot total. With it, maybe I'll just have text align to the right, like that. Let's see if this is working. Good. Then I'll also have a margin top, not margin but border. It's going to be 1 pixel solid black. Save that. Good, that is what I wanted. So you can see that when we increase the amount, even the total is increasing and reducing depending on the quantity. So when I remove, you can see it reflects the total expenditure on the single product that we have. So if I come back and add another item like that, that is what we shall have. Everything is working as you can maybe round these to a specific decimal places or decimal points. You can read about that in your own free time. I think the purpose of the video has been achieved now. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so, and share this video. Thank you so much for your time. See you next time.